Hello everyone, this is Don back with the next progress report on the War Corsair. Today's Monday. The parts didn't show up today. I'm still waiting for the bearing for the front of the gearbox, the thrust bearing. It was last shown to be in Pittsburgh on like Saturday, but because of the holiday it was delayed, and it apparently didn't get shipped from Pittsburgh to here till possibly today, but it still hasn't shown up in the local post office, and the mail's already come and gone. It's pushing 5 o'clock or just after 5 o'clock now. So today I've been thinking about my carburetor thing, of what I can do to try and get the thing to lean out in the mid-range for when the main jet overlaps with the thunder jet, or the intermediate jet overlaps with the main jet. From idle into the intermediate's fine, but then when the main comes in, it comes in too early, the intermediate drags on too late, so it goes really rich at 3000. So it'll be almost too lean at 2000, and then goes richer from there to 3, and then it goes clear down into the 11s, and then by the time I get to 5000 it's back up to 14 to 1, so it's too lean on the top end, meaning the Thunderjet needs to supply more fuel, or the main circuit needs to supply more fuel on the top. But if I change the intermediate to make it richer, or the main jet to make it richer, it gets too fat in the mid-range. So I've been thinking about how I can test that. So today I set up a little test fixture with a vacuum pump. I've got this industrial vacuum pump that my friend gave me. He had a brother-in-law that was into HVAC, and he retired and had like 3 or 4 of these things, so he gave them to his brother-in-law, and then I worked with him over at the shop, so he gave me this one, and that's 6 inches. That thing will pull 6 CFM, excuse me. So it's a good unit. Pulls a lot of CFM for its size. Most of the ones you buy for automotive use, or like Harbor Freight, could only be 1.5 to 3 CFM, so it's a big boy. So what I did is, you can see I hooked up one of the original hoses. Actually had a fitting that fit in there to go to a hose barb, and then into this little chamber, which is it'll pull fluid through here, but it won't come out this side until it gets up, because this tube here, you can see the yellow tube in there where the solution, like brake bleed, and the fluid come in there, and you're just pulling air through there, so it siphons everything out. So what I did is I drug out my manometer. This is a Dwyer's manometer. It goes up to, as you can see, 18 inches above, and you get to 0 in the middle, and then it goes to 18 inches below. So this is considered a 36 inch water column. 36 inches of water. But because Dwyer uses a fluid with a specific gravity of 0.826 to 1, the graduations from 0 to 1 is not 1 inch, it's closer to 1.25 inches. They do that to spread out the divisions so you can get a more accurate reading down to the 1/10 of an inch. So, but it still only reads down to 0.2 of an inch, because when the fluid, it's hooked up to pull the vacuum on the left side. So if you pull this up to 1 inch here, this one drops to 1 inch, you have to add them together, so you're at 2 inches. So 1 inch of water column is only a 1/2 inch. So each division of 0.1, 2, 3, all the way up to 1, they're actually 0.2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So 1 inch is equal to 2 inches. So that's hooked up, comes down around, hooks into here, and the vacuum pump hooks down from here to here through my little, this is the on-off valve, so I can open and let the vacuum suck through here and in to main, so I can dial in the vacuum that I want to pull on this main jet. What I've got is this hose hooked to the emulsion tube outlet where the fuel will come out of the carburetor, and it's also tied into the manometer here. So when I turn on the pump, and because this thing pulls so much vacuum, I have to leave this wide open, and I'm regulating it by this valve here. This is just a ball valve in there, so that's fully closed, fully open. So I adjust this until I see fuel just starting to come out of this tube. How much inches of vacuum does it take for fuel to come out of there? And then I read it off the chart there, off the gauge. So I've made an adjustment to it. I pulled out that tube I put in there that was 1 inch long overall, and I took it out and I cut another one at 1.25 inches long and put it in there to delay the fuel flow. And then after I flowed this one, I hooked it up to the Thunderjet and I flowed that one to see what it takes. And it's a surprising take on what's going on, because this thing doesn't kick in till like 4,000 RPM, and there's the fuel level there. And then also I actually have gasoline in this with this little tank, so just gravity feed to keep the fuel level. I'm not trying to pull fuel through here, I'm just trying to get it to where I can see the fuel wanting to come out. That's all I'm looking for. How much vacuum does it take for this thing to start pulling fuel? So let's see if I can get this on video for you here. Trip over I got my thing set up here, but I'll give you a little demonstration of what I'm trying to do. Yeah, let's see where we're at here. Get that up there. I'm going to zoom in on that a little more. And the idea is to see when the fuel just starts trickling out of this thing. This isn't a real loud pump, it's quiet until I open up and start pulling a vacuum. Now the idea is just to turn this on until it starts sucking fuel out. You might see it spitter. And it's starting to pull right there. You can hear the change. There's 2 inches. No fuel yet. Let me just show you what it does. You can see the fuel right here now. That's pulling 1 inch and 1.2 inches. And you turn it back down. Reset it. Before it would pull 0.2 inches, which is 0.4 inches to make it flow before I increase the length of the emulsion tube in the middle. So now, right there is about 2.5, and it's just barely bubbling a little bit. So before it was 0.2 inches, so that works out to 0.4 inches of water column vacuum for that jet to flow fuel. And the more I apply the vacuum, you can see how it comes out of there. It's bubbly. That's the air bleed over here working. Now if I take that air bleed and I plug it, it stops flowing, because now I'm trying to lift the weight of the fuel. I'd have to really pull it up. Now see, it's coming out as a solid. To take my finger off, now I'm getting into the bleeding action. And again, the cup is to catch the fuel. You can see a little bit of fuel that came out of there. So the air bleed, once you plug the hole for the air bleed, then it stops bubbling and it just pulls a solid column of fuel. So without the air bleed in there, you're just pulling straight fuel only. The air bleed is there to break up the fuel, make it lighter so it can lift. Alright, so after that, I hooked it up to the Thunderjet and I did the test again. Let me tell you what happened there. So I was at 0.4 inches to pull the main jet before it would start coming out the top. And then when I lengthened that center tube to delay it, now it takes 0.5 inches. It's like 2.5 per side on that chart. And then it will pull. Let me turn that on and turn the camera on so you can see what it does on that over there. Too far. Let me zoom it back out. Find the thing. Where is it? There she is. Tip her up a little bit. Zoom her back in. A little too far. Alright, let me redo that test just to show you what I'm talking about. Alright, I'm going to crack open it. You'll hear the change. That's when it's actually starting to pull a vacuum. Right there. Okay, so there's 0.1, 0.2-ish. It's very, very sensitive. So right there is 2 and it's not flowing fuel, it's just a hair over 2, and then once I get to about 2.5, I'm starting to see a little bit of fuel trickle in the top. So that's 5.5 inches of vacuum, and if I pull it even harder, and you can see the gas flow in the carburetor. But that's what I'm doing. So when I getting ready to say that when I flow, let me see my thing here, back up a little bit. When I flowed the tube over here, it took 4.2 inches. So the chart on the manometer over there got all the way up to 2.1 inches of water column, which would be 4.2 inches. So it took 4 inches to get the fuel to come out of here, and it only took a half of an inch to get fuel come out of here. And it's like, so I pulled this jet out and I started measuring up the dimensions of this tube to see, you know, because this won't come in till like 4,000 RPM, which is great. So I'm measuring up the tube size, the bore size, the size of the air bleeds. There's only 2 air bleeds and they're 1/16 inch. So I figured up all the math on the area of the area of the holes, and found the ratio between the size of the jet and the size of the air bleeds is 1.333 to 1, meaning the air bleeds are 33% bigger than the jet size. So then I did the math on the main jet with the air bleed on that, and it was like only 0.6 something, 0.7 at best. But what come to find out was, when in order to get this jet to flow, your fuel has to come from clear over here. You can see, yeah, the fuel level's right there. It has to pull all the way up to here, and that's what, a good 3 inches. See if I got my ruler here. So to pull up from here all the way up to the jet, that's 4 inches. So it has to pull 4 inches before that fuel can even get in here to flow. So by me lengthening this tube the first time, it has to pull up higher, so it delays the on time of that main jet. So now it's up past center, and I'll run it. But I also increased the air bleed out here, and I drilled the top 2 air bleed holes in this. I drilled them all the way through, so now I got 4 holes at 40 thou, and then there's 3 more below that that's submerged in the fuel at 40 thou. So the idea is those 2 holes, the area of those, well, the 2 holes all the way through, so a total of 4 holes at 40 thou. It was about 80 thousandths of, equal to an 80 thousandths hole here on the air bleed to give me a area size. So the area of the bleed is equal to the area of the holes in the emulsion tube. So I've changed the holes in the emulsion tube, added 2 more at 40 thou, lengthened this tube. I didn't do anything different to this jet. I left it the same, other than testing it. So the idea is I'm trying to delay this main jet, and then this one's fine. I just need more fuel delivery, or increase the main jet size to help feed this circuit to get it all richer at 5,000 RPM. Whereas now it's too lean. It starts leaning out after 5, and I can't have that. So, but the idea is if I put in a main jet, it's going to get too rich at 3,000. At 4,000 it's perfect. It's just under 13 to 1. And then it starts leaning out because it needs more fuel. But the main jet on the fuel is only 70 thou, and I need to probably get between 74 and 84 in order to get enough fuel with this to feed the engine without, but it's going to cause a rich condition in the mid-range. So once I get my gearbox back together, I will put this all back on there, take it out and run it and see what the numbers give me, and then I'll go from there. So, but I really need to increase this main jet size to help with the Thunderjet to give me a top end richness. But by playing with the length of this and the holes in there, another option is if you was to make this channel in this tube smaller, a smaller diameter, like 1/8 inch, the signal, the vacuum pulling on that thinner, smaller area has less fuel, so the fuel will lift easier. So if you can bore out this tube or make another tube, emulsion tube, with a bigger inside diameter for a bigger fuel cavity, it would take more vacuum to lift that up out of there. And then you could cause it to lean out there, but once it gets flowing, then the holes in the emulsion tube will dictate how much fuel it'll go as it goes, because the more you run it, the more the fuel level drops, because when you add air to the fuel, you're making the fuel lighter to lift. So when I plug this hole with my finger, the fuel drops because it's not mixing with air anymore. So now you're just lifting the dead weight of the gasoline. And then when I take my finger off, then it starts emulsifying, and then it can lift the fuel easier. So the there's 5 holes in that emulsion tube in a single row, and they were all 40 thousandths. They're a little different spacing towards the top and equal spacing on the bottom. So if you was to like solder shut the 3 holes in the bottom, it would make it go rich, because now you're trying to just pull a fuel column with no air, and the only air that'll bleed in there is the top 2. So you can play with those. So the idea is with this one, it has to pull up 4 inches. So that's why this doesn't kick in till 4,000 RPM. This one kicks in at starts at 2,000 RPM, because you're only ½ inch, 5/8 inch above the fuel, so the fuel only has to lift a little over ½ an inch. So now with my tube in there, it's got to lift over an inch, probably closer to 1.5 inches. So that should delay some more. But that's my little setup. You can see how much fuel I got in there. Emulsified fuel. There's not much gas in this at all. So that's kind of what I'm up to today. Just burning time. It's a little better out today than it's been. Is this thing still recording? It looks like it is. Get it out of the holder here. Come on, get out of there. There we go. I need to take the zoom back off. But just so you can see what I've got going on here, if I can see myself, the vinyl tube is just slipped over top of that center tube. It's a 1/4 inch tube, and this emulsion tube is a 1/4 inch on the base. So I just slipped over. You can see how much taller it is. Before it was only about that tall, but it's only a 1/4 inch longer than before. But it's just above, you can see it's just above center. And then they're offset, so they're not going to touch at all. So that's kind of what I did. It's an interesting thing to see. I've learned to mess with manometers before, so I know how they work, and I've had that one around, sitting around for, I've had that probably for over 30 years. It gets used every now and then. So that's what I'm trying to do is, so right now I'm just going to leave it as it is, throw it on there and see what effect this gives me. It should delay this kicking in, should help lean it out in the mid-range, and then the air bleeds in there and the larger air bleed out here. I took that air bleed completely out and it changed nothing, only because the size of the air bleed was smaller than the holes, the combined area of the holes in the emulsion tube. So the air bleed was a restrictor. I've taken that out completely and was running off of this, and it had no effect on it. But you can do the kind of the same effect. If I make the air bleeds in the emulsion tube smaller, that would make the fuel heavier, put less air in there and make it heavier, and then it may lift. So I may try going smaller on the air bleeds too, to delay the onset. And then the bottom holes, you can make them bigger to emulsify it more, or completely shut them off so the signal is stronger to pull straight fuel instead of just emulsified air, to make it richer as it goes higher and higher through the RPM range. So that's kind of where I'm at. I know it's probably confusing to many, but it's just stuff you learn messing with carburetors, you know, stuff like that. It's fluid dynamics. Alright, I think that's going to do it for this update. There's not much more to report on. I was hoping I can get that bearing, at the very least, drive over to this post office and pick it up if it made it in there today, but the tracking never showed that it made it to Girard yet. Otherwise I could have went over and picked it up and worked on it tonight, or started on it first thing in the morning, because my mail, like I mentioned before, doesn't show up until after 1 o'clock on a weekend Saturday. It might show up at noon, but most of the week it's between 1 and 2 o'clock. I got the fuel tank all finished. I pulled it apart, sealed her all up, and then I finished plumbing up the fuel system. Got all the hoses hooked up, coming through the firewall. I ended up staying with the original location here. came down and I added a glass fuel filter here. People can say, oh, you can't use that, it's glass. Well, if you've ever seen a real aircraft engine, they have a fuel sediment bowl, and it's usually mounts on a firewall. The fuel comes in and it's a filter sediment, and it traps, and it's glass, so you can see the water if there's any water in it. And the reason it's glass, the reason they use that is because it was a tractor part. Many may not know that an aircraft carburetor was nothing more than a tractor carburetor back in the day. They went to the makers of the carburetors for tractors, which were updraft, and they use them on aircraft. So the carburetors on aircraft are old fossil dinosaurs from tractor days back in the 50s and so forth, even older. But they were tractor bowls, and they're glass. So, and that's a real thick glass on that. It's probably Pyrex too by the looks of it. It doesn't look like normal glass, and that thing's probably 3/16 inch thick, and they're tough. They're real tough. But it's all mounted in there, so now it's going to filter. Again, this regulator is going bye-bye. The hose will come out, and the new regulator will be mounted here. So I'll probably order that up after, let's see, my next week will be my payday for my Social Security. So I've got money to order it now, but I can hold off. I don't need it right now. That's working okay. But I need to get her back out and run it up to do some more jetting and try to get this thing dialed in. The ignition's working great. It's got the timing I want, and it doesn't need any more than that. So all I got to do is get this bearing in here, get this thing back together, put that new seal in, press that hub back on, press the pins back in, and it just spins nice and freely. And then once the hub's on there, it'll spin a little harder because it's going to be riding on the seal. So this seal and the seal in the back of this, I'll pull the shaft back out and I'll lube everything up, put it back together, and then this one will be lubed up before I press on that hub, before this propeller hub gets pressed in. So that's all I gotta do. Throw that bearing in there, put the seal in it, press the hub on, pin it, and bolt it back together, and then just reseal it here. So alright everyone, that's gonna do her. All that glare from the outside lighting. It just finally kind of started clearing off here. It was pretty much overcast all day, and it's in the low to mid 70s, but it's still humid. I think this morning when I looked at it, it said it was 86% humidity. So it's high, but it's a lot more bearable. Alright everyone, I guess that's going to do it for this update. As always, appreciate you guys taking time to watch these videos. Feel free to leave any comments, questions, concerns as always. And as always, don't be afraid to leave any comments. There's a throttle action. And I'm just going to kind of leave that set up unless I want to do something more with it tomorrow, do some other checks. But that was what I was up to today, just curiosity to see what it's going to take to get this thing to work properly. So, alright, again, as always, appreciate you taking time to watch my videos, and feel free to leave any comments, questions, concerns, and don't be afraid to leave comments as always, and I will catch you guys hopefully in another day or two. So for now, this is Don out.